This is a word problem, but it's really just a triangle problem.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let me
Yeah.
redraw it because this is something that they do a lot of. They give you a simple triangle problem and then they couch it in a real complicated word problem that's got a lake in it that doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Right.
It's really just a geometry word. It's not even a geometry word problem. It's a geometry problem.
Okay.
Okay, now all of the information that's in this paragraph, I'm going to label on this diagram.
Okay.
And if you found yourself doing this problem, that's what you would want to do too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so AB is 1800.
Yeah.
EB is 1400.
Mm-hmm.
BD is 700.
Yep.
And CD is 800.
Mm-hmm.
Segments AC angle AEB, AEB, this angle right there,
Right. Mm-hmm.
is the same measurement as angle CDB, this angle right there.
Okay.
What's the value of X? Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
let's minimize that for a second and blow this up and look at what we have.
Okay.
If this is triangle 1 and this is triangle 2,
Mm-hmm.
what do we know about those two triangles?
We know that AE is parallel to DC.
Good. It's true.
Um,
That's
yeah.
definitely true. Because those angles are equal, they can't be equal unless those two lines are parallel.
Mm-hmm. And then we know that AC is perpendicular to DE. Is that
Hold
right?
on. No.
Or, no.
No, don't really know that. Don't need to know that.
Yeah, we don't know that. Yeah.
Either you need to know that these two triangles are similar or
Mm.
congruent.
Yeah.
They don't look congruent.
No.
I mean, triangle 2 is definitely smaller than triangle 1.
Mm-hmm.
Are they similar? What is required for similarity?
Um, Let me think. Yeah. Oh. They both need to add up to 180.
Well, they have to have the same three angles.
Oh, okay.
Two triangles are similar. If I draw a
Mm-hmm.
triangle like this, and I draw a triangle over here like this,
Mm-hmm.
as long as this is 40, that's 60, and that's 80, as long as I have an 80 and a 60 and a 40 over here, it doesn't matter whether this triangle is bigger than this triangle or not. They are similar.
Mm-hmm.
If you have three angles the same, they are similar. And
Okay.
similarity is huge because
Mm-hmm.
you have two triangles that are similar, whatever the similarity ratio is,
Mm-hmm.
all that holds for all the sides.
Okay.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you get similarity. It's not really the rules for congruency.
Mm-hmm.
Congruency had SAS, it had SSS, it had ASS, it had
Mm-hmm.
hypotenuse length.
Right.
None of those matter for similarity. The only thing that matters is angle, angle. Because if you get two angles equal, then the third one has to be equal, right? They all have to add to 180.
Right.
If I get this angle E equals angle D, are there any other
Mm.
angles that are equal between those two triangles?
Um, let's see. There's um AB and then EB? But now those aren't equal.
It's the same angle.
Yeah,
So
that
let's
is.
define your angle using 3 letters.
Yeah.
Sometimes
You got angle.
sometimes you can define an angle with 1 letter. Like I said, angle E. That can only
Right.
be that angle. But if
Okay.
you want to define this angle here,
Yeah.
hey, you
Angle
can
A and
call
then
that
angle
angle
C.
A. What's
Yeah.
angle A equal to?
Angle A is equal to angle C.
Because they're parallel.
Right.
Ah, man, I hate this freaking program. If you
Is there
forget,
like a refresh button?
if you forget that you're on eraser and you go to
Uh-huh.
draw something, it erases it.
That's.
So you have to remember that you're on eraser, or else you screw up your whole diagram. So
Mm-hmm.
this angle A,
Mm-hmm.
not the same as angle E, don't need it to be the same, but it is the same as angle C
Right.
because of the 2 parallel lines.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have angle, the third angle. This
Right.
angle right here has to be equal to that one right there. But
Mm-hmm.
actually we knew that in the first place because they're vertical angles. So we could have actually said that.
Okay.
Didn't have to actually know that they were parallel, AE and DC. I'm
Mm-hmm.
glad you recognize that. That's
Oh,
certainly
we did.
a true thing. But once
Yeah.
they told us that E was equal to D,
Mm-hmm.
we know that angle ABE is equal to angle DBC.
Okay.
Anytime you have 2 lines that cross, angle 1's equal to angle 2. And angle 3
Mm-hmm.
is equal to angle 4 based on vertical angles.
Right.
So we knew
Vertically
that
angles down.
all along, that that one's
Mm-hmm.
equal to that one. Well, once they told us D was equal to E, well, now we know that A has to be equal to C.
Mm-hmm.
That makes their similar triangles. What's the similarity ratio?
Um, I remember doing this.
What are the
Um,
corresponding sides?
um,
In other words, you have there's your triangle ABE.
uh-huh.
And then over here we have BDC.
Mm-hmm.
What side is equal to that one right there in the other triangle? And I don't mean equal, I mean proportional.
Right. BC.
BD.
BG.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's that one right there.
Okay.
Which means if this one's 1400 and this one's 700, what's my
Mm-hmm.
similarity ratio?
1 to 2 or 2 to 1.
I like 2 to 1 better.
Yeah, me too.
If this one's over here, 800,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's X?
400.
Which is the
Or
bigger
no, that was a
triangle?
bigger one. Yeah, so it'd be 1600.
Right. Always make sure you know which is your, in other words, one of the problems with doing small to little and also little to big is you can
Mm-hmm.
get them backwards pretty easily.
Yeah, for sure.
But as long as one triangle is significantly bigger than the other triangle, then is all you have to do is look at it. And you realize
Mm.
that this triangle has to be, every side has to be 2 to 1 over this triangle here.
Yeah.
Also realize this 1800, totally unneeded,
Yeah, they don't need that.
which they do in the SAT test, is they give you a lot of information sometimes that you don't really need. And you
Mm-hmm.
kind of have to be able to eliminate it from your thinking, because otherwise it can really screw you up.
Yeah.
And this is not the multiple choice part of the test. This is the part where you have to grid in your answers.
Gotcha.
Well, what that also means is that they're easier.
Okay.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
The multiple choice tend to be harder because they're giving you multiple choice. They're not giving you any multiple choice on these, so they make them a little easier. But gosh, you only get about a minute per problem.
Yeah.
Well, it takes 45 seconds to even draw the triangles and label them on 7.
Right.
So 17 is not a hard problem, but gosh, there's 8 lines of sentences there that you have to read and interpret and then be able to label that triangle. Be nice if you could write on their triangle, and maybe you can when you take
Maybe.
the test. I don't know. Is your test in paper format or is it on a computer screen?
I think it's paper format.
So you probably could label these.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't necessarily have to redraw everything. Some things are tough to draw. This is kind of tough to draw. This would be a lot easier if I could just label it on the screen itself.
That would be,
Yeah, it would save you time.
it would, which is huge.
Well, it
when
is.
It comes to
It's the name of the game.
Yeah.
It's not just about math knowledge. It's about how quickly you can pull it up. Because there's no way you get anything right if you don't get to it.
No, for sure.
I mean, you do want to guess, don't get me wrong. You want to make sure there's no longer any penalty for guessing on the SAT.
Which is nice. Was that, so that was, if you guessed on it, how would they know you guessed on it? Like,
They wouldn't. They just made the penalty equal to the average. In other words, if you have 4 multiple choices and you guess, you're 25% likely to get it right just on a pure guess, right?
right, yeah.
So they made the penalty 25%.
Wow.
So the way it used to be, it didn't always pay to guess. I mean, if you didn't have a clue, then it was equal. Probability-wise, it was equal whether you guessed or not. But now that there's no penalty for guessing and getting it wrong, in other words, there's no penalty for wrong answers, then you definitely want to guess as opposed to leaving a question unanswered.
Oh, yeah,
The
for sure.
worst thing you can do on this test is to not answer every single question, even if you have to guess at all 60 of them.
Right.
You're better off than answering 55 of them and leaving 5 of them blank, which affects the way you take the test. You have to take the test and kind of pace yourself like a track man would running a marathon. Whereas if there's 60 questions, you want to make sure that you're well through more than half with half the time gone. You don't want to be on question 30 with 30 minutes gone.
No.
Because that means you're not going to get a chance to go back and guess on the ones that you didn't know how to do. Yeah. As you take the test, as you go through it the first time, the best way to do it is to do the ones you know how to do, and then ones that either you've taken 2 or 3 minutes on and you don't know how to do it or you don't know how to do it, put a check mark by it. And then make sure that you hit question 60 with at least 10 minutes or 5 minutes to go. So that you can go back and have time to at least put a check mark in on the ones that you didn't know how to do.
Okay.
That might take a couple minutes. So
it might, yeah. Yeah. What's considered like a good score on the SAT? Like what range of score?
Average, probably 500 on the math. 500 out of 800, maybe less. Average, probably 450, 460 maybe.
Gotcha. Okay.
I got a 727, one of the things I'm most proud of in my life. But
wow.
Well, I didn't do as good on the verbal. I only got like 525 on the verbal. but I did
That's
very,
okay.
very good on the math, on the SAT.
Wow.
But there's lots of people in the world that get 800 on the math and verbal. Perfect score.
That's that's just insane, you know.
In fact,
Oh
Lady
my
Gaga is
gosh.
one of them. Did you know that?
Is she really?
Lady
I
Gaga,
did not know that.
800 on the SAT. Yes, she did.
Did she really?
Uh-huh.
Wow. Wow.
Also,
Man, I didn't
lady,
like for the longest time I didn't think she was that bright,
I
but
didn't,
man,
I didn't know that either. I was really shocked by that. But
yeah.
there's a lady golfer named Morgan Pressel who also
Oh,
got
okay.
1,500
Man.
on the SAT. So there's a lot of bright people out there. Uh,
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
but also
definitely.
the test isn't really that hard. I mean, once if you really understand your algebra and geometry and a little bit of trig,
Uh-huh.
there's no real reason to miss any of them. I would venture that if I were to take the SAT today, I might get 800.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I've spent the last 8 years practicing.
On this stuff, right. Yeah.
All right, number
Is
eight.
that how long? Yeah.
What's that?
Is that how long you've been tutoring for? Is 8 years?
Yeah, it is.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it hasn't always been SAT or ACT, but it's
Mm-hmm.
it's been, algebra, geometry, trig, calculus.
Uh-huh.
The things
Cool.
make up most of the questions. So I'm much better. I'd be much better at taking it today than I was as a 17-year-old, a senior in high school,
Right.
just
Mm-hmm.
because it's my profession now. Back then, it was just I was good at math.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's look at 18.
Okay.
And again, this is a fill in the blank, not multiple choice. Got
Yeah.
a system of two equations. They're in standard format. What's going to be the best way to solve it?
Probably process of elimination.
Good. How are
Cool.
we going to eliminate a variable?
Mm-hmm. So we multiply the top equation by -2.
All right, that'll eliminate y. I don't mind that. Don't
Mm-hmm.
really need to do that. Notice that I could subtract the equations immediately and eliminate x.
Oh, okay.
But
Right.
I have no problem with that. So I'm going to rewrite 1 as
Mm-hmm.
minus 2x minus 2y
Is
equals
equal to 18.
plus 18.
Yeah.
And then equation 2 is going to be x plus 2y equals minus 25. I don't have any problem with this is because addition's always a little better than subtraction. Anytime you can do addition, do it,
Okay.
as opposed to subtraction. Even though it required one extra step, the fact is that they're asking for x. Whereas
Okay.
the way I was going to do it, we would have solved for y first,
Mm-hmm.
then we would have had to go back in and solve for x. Whereas
Okay.
the way you're doing it, you're going to solve for x immediately.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do now? What do you get when you add the two equations now?
Yeah, so you get minus x is equal to what is that? 7.
Which means x is
So
equal
x is
to,
equal to 7. Yeah,
here's your answer.
cool.
So really, your method was better than mine because I would have solved for y, and then I would have had to stick y back into one of these equations to solve for x.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Plus, your method allowed you to add and not have to worry about dealing with so many negative numbers. Whenever
Yeah, which
you have a
gets
choice between dealing with positive numbers or negative numbers, deal with the negative number, the positive numbers, excuse me.
okay. No, you're good.
Number 19, there's only, I don't know on the SAT. On the ACT, there's exactly 4 trig questions.
Mm-hmm.
On the SAT, I don't know if it's exactly 4, but they're about the same degree of difficulty.
Okay.
Now, they don't tell us the angle. We have to solve for the angle. But they tell us the sine of the angle is 4/5. So if that's my angle, x degrees, how can I dimension this right triangle?
Sine.
The fact that
I
the
remember
sine
sine
is
cos.
equal to 4/5. Think SOHCAHTOA.
Yeah.
If there's one thing you need to memorize for this test, I mean, if there are 4 trig questions, it's like 4 gifts, as long as you remember your basics.
Okay.
If you forget SOHCAHTOA, you're going to get all 4 of them wrong.
Right.
If you can remember SOHCAHTOA, you should get at least 3 of them right. That's a huge difference, getting 3 problems as opposed to none.
Zero. Yeah, definitely. It's a really big difference, especially when
Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So what's the opposite side got to be?
it's gotta be the angle on the top.
Look at the question.
Oh.
Sine of x equals 4/5.
Yeah.
Sine means opposite over hypotenuse. This the opposite, that's the hypotenuse. What's this?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember this. Yeah. So the 5 would go to the left, and then the 4 would go
The other way. It's
right
opposite, that's the opposite, the angle x,
4/5. Okay.
and that's the hypotenuse.
Okay.
Okay? Now,
Okay.
they want to know what the cosine of 90 degrees minus x is. Well, is that not angle z right there?
It is. Yeah.
What's cosine of angle z?
Um.
Which is what they're asking.
Cosine.
In other words, they want to know the cosine of 90 degrees minus x, but 90 degrees minus x is this other acute angle, which I'm calling z.
Okay.
So what's the cosine of z?
Um.
What's a mean?
That'll be 45, right?
No, we don't need to know the numbers on these angles. This is not what they want to know is the cosine of 90 degrees minus x. Well, cosine is what? What's CAH mean?
Um.
What's the A stand?
That's the angle over hypotenuse.
Adjacent.
Adjacent. Okay.
Adjacent over hypotenuse.
Okay.
So what's the angle adjacent to angle Z?
Angle X.
No. Adjacent means, excuse me, I asked that wrong. What is the side adjacent to angle Z?
Oh, adjacent angle Z would be, um,
You have 2 sides that are adjacent. The one they're referring to is not the hypotenuse.
okay. So not that. So the
Let's
90
talk
degree.
about what constitutes opposite or adjacent.
Yeah.
See why side 4 is opposite to angle X.
Oh, I do see that. Yeah, and then the 90 degrees is opposite to
What's
angle 5.
opposite to angle Z?
Angle 3, or the 3.
Side 3.
So this is a, yeah, 3, 4, 5 right triangle,
You
right?
got sides and you got angles. They're not the same thing. One is measured in feet, the other is measured in degrees.
Okay.
Okay?
Now
So,
I remember this.
what is adjacent to angle Z? What side is adjacent?
Side 3.
That's opposite.
That is opposite.
We just went through that.
So side 5.
That's the hypotenuse. You're correct in the sense that the hypotenuse is one of the adjacent sides. If angle Z is there, well then that side and that side are both adjacent.
Yeah.
But that's why I say they're never referring to the hypotenuse. So when
Okay,
you
so
see
it's side 4.
SOHCAHTOA, the A always means the adjacent short side of the
Okay.
triangle. So it's 4.
Okay.
Over the
So that's
hypotenuse, what's the cosine of 90 minus x?
So the cosine of 9 minus x is 3.
Adjacent over the hypotenuse. That's what ca means.
Okay. So that would be 4 over 5. 4 over 5.
Yeah, same
Okay.
thing as the sine was.
Yeah.
Notice we never had to figure out what x was.
No.
That was not the problem. The problem was they gave us one trig function, which was the sine of x, and they
Uh-huh.
asked us about another trig function of another angle that we could easily figure out.
Yeah.
So it's all about knowing SOHCAHTOA. You've
Okay.
got to remember SOHCAHTOA. The way I
Yeah.
would remember that is when I was a little kid, 7 years old, my 12-year-old brother got a
Uh-huh.
severely infected big toe. You know
Ooh.
what he had to do?
What?
You know what he had to do?
Um,
Soak his toe.
Stuck his, oh yeah. Stuck his toe.
SOHCAHTOA.
Oh, that's a good way to
That's how
remember
I
it.
remember it.
Okay.
SOHCAHTOA.
Alright.
Okay? Whatever you have to do to remember it, remember it. That's the key.
Okay.
It doesn't matter
How
what
do you infect
method
his
you use.
toe?
They could teach
Yeah.
you a song and it would be fine. You just
Right.
you have to come up with a method to memorize some of this stuff.
I think of like, the way I remembered it last year was I just thought of an Indian name,
Yeah,
and
very much
like it sounds like an Indian name.
it does.
So
But you have to be
yeah,
careful because it has to be CAH. So you
right.
don't really want to pronounce it SOHCAHTOA. You want to pronounce it so-ka, like a crow, the sound a crow would make. Ka,
Right.
ka, ka.
Okay.
SOHCAHTOA.
Mhm. Okay.
And then tangent is opposite side over adjacent side.
Right.
So it's the
Okay.
tangent of x. If it's
So
opposite
the
over adjacent.
yeah, so the opposite side would be 4 over 3.
Good. Very good.
Cool. Sweet.
All right. We got through 19. Next
We
time
did.
we need to do ACT or SAT. We'll know where to start.
Sounds good.
All right,
All
Dale.
right.
Have a good night.
Thanks, Miss Cohen. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.